Okay. Everything should be audible at this point. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. Everything is advancement. That's it. That's the episode, guys. All right. I think I just broke the record for the shortest episode. Okay. You know, some nights I wonder about how to, uh, recollect my thoughts and how to give a sort of alignment to where I would like to take these episodes. I thought about for this episode focusing on the idea of advancement and how the conclusion, or let's say from a metaphysical perspective, advancement is everything, you know. So let me see how I can open this up for the viewers. We if we are to look at the statement, everything is advancement. By everything, we have the context to the moment. you know. I'm just looking at these two sentences. Everything is advancement, and then advancement is everything. And really, what can I say? I mean, based on the dimensions of the human being, we get a sense of what spaces are active and present for there to be any sort of advancement. What I've realized is that whatever situation a human being is in, wherever they are, whether they know what to do or not, the purpose of human beings having a conscious mind is to access information, right? And the purpose, we are individuals in a system and can not only govern our own perception, but can even be a part of the system and move in the system. The purpose to human intelligence is to notice more than one dimension. Existence, its purpose is innate, it has an instantaneous meaning. But experience is the additional dimension to existence. We human beings, we don't freak about, you know, it's like we take existence for granted simply because existence is just existing. But while we exist, we have the opportunity to experience, and experience is an additional layer to reality. It's very difficult to say that when a human being actually sees something, for them to say, okay, like right now in front of me, I'm seeing this microphone. Now, for me to say, I am seeing this microphone, or am I being the sight, let's say the light, am I being, how do I say this? It's like, am I seeing the microphone, or is my brain happening as the whole moment? Right? There's a it becomes a bit difficult to separate ourselves out of the equations we have come up for ourselves. We have designed for ourselves. Anyways, my starting point. How am I going towards this episode? Right. So I have the task and the challenge of explaining to the viewers why everything is advancement, and also try to point to the not the idea of the advancement of advancement, but how advancement is everything, right? So it's a sort of symmetrical relationship to the idea. Everything is advancement, depends on the reality and story we're telling ourselves. Most human beings, most, let's say, members of the human species on Earth, they acknowledge an individual physical position, and they acknowledge a collective physical position. This is pretty much basic. Okay, all, like, if whoever you are listening to me right now, our body is the starting point to our individualism. We're like this energy present in the moment, and this energy has relationships with itself. And based on what type of human being you are, what kind of person you are, the intensity of these relationships open up as the person pays attention to self, right? So what do I mean by this? The most basic awareness is like, okay, I'm this biological body, and I'm in this physical world. I could move around this physical world. However, okay, that's pretty much there for people, mostly unconsciously happening. But there is something in the human experience where we cannot individually, like, think of it this way, where this intelligence has an individual, how am I complicating this? We have a human being, okay? A human being is born. We say, all right, this human being's pretty cool. It has a physical side, and it has a non-physical side. Now, some people are gonna be like, yo, I'm a heavy materialist. I can't just, hear the word non-physical and not react. Pretty much what I'm saying is, what is the game? What is the scenario? 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere. One of the creatures is wondering, how could everything be advancement? The creature is looking at the moment, noticing, all right, there's a physical side, there's a physical side to the coin of manifestation, and there's a non-physical side. The physical side of reality consists of an individual and collective dimension, and the non-physical side of reality has an individual and collective view. Okay, and some people are going to be like, Mr. Within, what do you mean individual, non-physical, individual, collective, non-physical, who do you think you are? So what I'm trying to say is, pretty much what's going on is we are this energetic position. We have an innate potential. It's as if energy has a mechanistic approach to convert energy for itself. It's like the most bizarre thing is happening. We're like, yo, there's like, I don't know, it's kind of like Tai Chi masters are, slowly moving their hands in parks, kind of suggesting they're having an energetic relationship with reality. But if we look at energy, energy is a force, and it's pretty much what animates, okay? And a person can have a relationship with their own energetic being that is dehumanized. This is something that a lot of people's spirituality seems fun. Spirituality seems like, yo, I could tell myself any story and act like it's true. For most people it's like that, but for some people spirituality is like you have 100 years to figure it all out. You know, that's spirituality. Spirituality is trying to remember, you know, uh, uh, you know, before non-existence could have hope. Anyways, back to this. I'm pretty much looking at a human being. I'm saying, all right, divided into two branches: physical, non-physical, mind, body. Okay. Then I ask myself, all right, this human being that has a physical side, non-physical side, we have a physical individualism, we have a physical collectivism, we have a non-physical individualism, non-physical collectivism. Now, when we are wondering about the area of advancement, advancement is very interesting because it is a concept only necessary for that which is already advancing. Okay? So it's another way of saying nature is doing something before our minds translate its activities into, let's say, sequential action, right? Like what really the attempt of knowledge on earth seems to be. It seems to be using a lesser technology to understand. It's like we're using um, a two-dimensional understanding to figure out something three-dimensional. Pretty much what is present and how can whatever it is that is present move. Advancement actually comes from the French word avancier, if I'm saying it correctly. But anyways, it comes from this. Pretty much, its etymology is, what do you call it? The word advancement means move forward, to go forth. Now, advancement is everything because unconsciously existence is changing. At any time we become emotional, we forget really it becomes difficult to compare the pace of how reality changes in front of our eyes to how reality changes behind our eyes. You know, I had this vision personally that in my own inner realms, I am holding humanity on the highest, most advanced level. It's as if I have this attitude, okay, something in this world has awakened me to this moment. It's kind of like, you know, sometimes I feel just to be awake as some sort of conscious, intelligent agency in the moment. It feels like the same opportunity I have to meet the greatness of the world is the same opportunity the world has to meet each of our individual greatness. And really, everything is advancement. Why? Because we human beings have been ignoring the true nature of time. We human beings have been forgetting that we have all literally, like it blew it, like this was one of those shocking things I realized where I'm like, wait a minute, my ancestors, everybody who's lived on the planet, what do we all have in common? And it's that we're all getting our attention drawn to what will happen rather than what is happening. There's something in the human view of intelligence that it is not content with its findings. Why? Because the world is so big. Who says the inner eyes aren't? You know? Sometimes I feel that a part of our intelligence is in time, and a part of our intelligence cannot be in time. You know, my sense is for now that really what's going on with human intelligence is that in an instantaneous moment, attention and existence are being the same substance. They're being the same position. It's like instantaneously we are timeless beings in an instant. But the moment you have more than one instant, oh my god, somebody wear a watch. There could be time. Now, ultimately, this episode is pointing to a very grand question, and the view is like the challenge. The challenge for this episode, at least for me, is to see what is the most advancement of the most advanced. You know, if I can, you know, dive deep into what that sentence, what the subtitle means. If we have a definition for the advancement of advancement, this episode has done its job, you know. So, we have a moment initially. A moment we can say is like a point on an empty piece of paper. Now, in this moment, we find that we have the duality of matter and space, which translate into shape and space. So I'm pretty much treating just the mind as like a point on a piece of paper. I'm drawing one line in this point, and one side of the line says shape, the other side of the line says space. Usually I have a notepad, but the notepad's not, you know, it's out of service right now. So, one duality we put upon the axis of reality. Consciousness has opened its eyes as the reception of its whole moment. Our intelligence opens its eyes and it's like, yo, I'm noticing three-dimensional space, and I'm noticing that all objective phenomena appears as geometry and color. You know, right now, I am looking at this cup in front of me, and this cup could be just this plastic red cup. Or it could just be the shape. It could just be the color. Like, you know, it's like somebody looks at a red cup and says, yo, is that a red cup? You know, or is the red, the color red being a cup? Or is the cup red? Do you see? We open our eyes, we notice that there is a relationship with space and with what's in space, and the answer to what's in space is shape, substance, and our perception gives us color. Now, simultaneously, they're just like I was saying, a single point, I drew one line in it, shape and space, Purusha, Prakriti, matter, space, whatever. The other line I would like to draw is individual and collective. This is very important. I mean, everybody already knows why this is important, because what else can 8 billion creatures do on a rock in the middle of nowhere? We either, we either experience the advanced humanity, or the species makes mistakes, that it leaves to correct, let's say, post-extinction scenarios like millions of years from now. So anyways, we have the duality of shape and space. We have the duality of the individual and the collective. We have the duality of the static and the dynamic, that which moves and that which is still. So we have stillness, movement, individualism, collectivism, shape, space, matter. Oh, and here I'll put another one, and I'll call this objective, and the other could be subjective. So this is another way of saying that there is so many ways the individual human being can advance. It has to do with how many lines with how many dualistic frames we're seeing, to like a spiraling, presence of a, infinite line. The world is an existential event, and it is also it's an existential existence is happening, then human beings open their eyes. Human beings are happening to existence. Oh, something I forgot to put on the axis, I could also put conscious, unconscious. Just to, to simplify this, because this can open up, this can ridiculously branch out. We open our eyes in the moment, something basic that everybody can acknowledge. All right, I'm existing. Yay. Existence is existing. This is like the first truth. The second truth is, in some sense, existence is noticing itself existing non-existentially. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because the mind is not a physical thing. The mind is actually how whatever intelligence we are is attempting to be space. And really what imagination is how the brain is acting like space. Brain is seeing, it sets, the brain treats absence as a world separator. There's consciousness in the moment. Existence is existing. Existence notices itself existing. You know, and it notices itself non-existentially existing, which is experientially. So we're in this situation where the only way we know we objectively exist is because of a necessary subjective experience. Something that, I think for people who have a spiritual, oh my God, for people who have a metaphysical or spiritual view on reality, pretty much the idea takes you to a moment where you distinguish between the observer and the observed. When it comes to human psychology, the observer is that awareness where before free will has solidified through decision is an openness to all inner events. It's kind of like before I speak, my mind has a potential to say any word. Okay, and it's kind of like before our attention sculpts what the moment has to mean, the moment technically can mean anything. See, that's the incredible thing about life. Life is not about fear of death. Life is about the comprehension of the mysteries of that which is alive. You see, it to me, something which is, it's poetically beautiful at the same time heartbreaking. Something that really breaks my heart more than all the messed up stuff happening on the planet, stretching from wars, tyranny, savageness, cruelty, unnecessary products and all of this, right? Something that breaks my heart more than anything the human species has done is how it can do something, or it could have done something and it didn't. This is the most heartbreaking feeling, when it's the same feeling a teacher has that sees a student with potential, but the teacher doesn't say anything. The teacher doesn't pull greatness out of its own, cave, because that's the nature of an advanced humanity. When I realize that the ultimate destination of all conscious entities in all universal sectors is stabilization through the organization of all the dimensions of their intelligence, it's another way of saying that we're here thinking that human beings are doing something and this is why the world has such a meaning. We're not realizing that from a dehumanized perspective, human beings are a process of nature. But from a humanized perspective, we are that self lost in a world, or behind our eyes, the world lost in the self. You see, to be a human being is excuse me, I gotta say this to just get it out of my system, but there's nothing fucking normal about being human beings. Nothing about human existence is normal. Normal is the greatest marketing. To be honest, it's like a historian, became the richest marketer on the planet, and they're like, yo, man, why did you change, from, a field in history, from a historian to become one of these marketing gurus, right? And the person's like, buddy, I realized history was the greatest marketing story, What I'm trying to tell the viewers is not that all of the cultural program and external programs to biological human intelligence should be distrusted and fought against. But what I'm trying to tell the viewers is that as a being in this lifetime, somebody who's ran 30 laps around the sun, I have throughout this time asked myself questions about how my attention is present. And what ended up becoming a shocking realization was that from the expectation of a spiritual abstract truth, that means the truth seeker's mind is like, feed me that ultimate story. And it's like from that thirst, imagine a complete flip. That means the person wanted to get enlightened. Why? Because they're like, I want to know who I am. But when you realize, even if we knew what we were, the world is unknown. That's a different game. It's a different game when we realize human consciousness on Earth is a flickering candle flame. It's like 8 billion candle flames just chilling here for like each of them 100 years. Yay, this mind shined its existence, it shined its experience into existence in this way and that way, right? For me, there is I don't know. I think it's probably not just because I'm getting older, but at the same time, I'm having this view on reality where it starts off with a physical possessive truth, and then the person more and more realizes that something that they were trying to attain in a system ends up becoming a quality of, I don't want to say a non-dual, but there's ways the moment is being true that has nothing to do with whatever human beings are doing. Okay, there is a Mysterian dimension. They call this Mysterianism, right? Where it's that which we can never know because its interconnectivity, its coherence with the rest of phenomena makes us incapable of knowing it, right? There have been philosophers who have been like, what the fuck? There have been philosophers who have wondered, what is matter? Like, how are we defining something physical? Are we just telling kids in school that objects are made of particles, and then these particles are geometric shapes? And that's it, kids. Remember these geometric shapes. And when you see objects, envision these geometric shapes, and you think you know what matter is. You see, one of the brilliant, this is really why, like, people don't realize what the ancient mystics did, and even what René Descartes did. René Descartes is one of those, like, if you're a human being and you don't know who René Descartes is like, the notion was that in the moment, could the mind have dimensional independence? It's another way of saying right now I'm being a physical entity speaking to the viewers, but imagine where these thoughts are coming from, where these rhythms of my speech are arising from, and where, before I speak in my inner realms, I notice the flow of where the moment is going. To me, I have realized there is certain moments in this life where shape doesn't owe anything to space. And when a person realizes that, they cannot have karma. And so it's this strange thing where where the view would be as if like, okay, how could this attention, this energetic attention remain as an individual when its experience of the moment is the totality of the network of whole events. Our lives as human beings have become a big deal because our attention is like being our eyes, right? But there's so many ways that reality happens that really does not have anything to do with the human being. It's kind of like there's different ecosystems, right? And so we were these creatures in nature. We were defined by our ecosystem, even Darwin has this thing about these two different birds with different beaks, and how the environment, how they adapted to the environment to survive, and their beaks caused them to adjust to the environment. But pretty much what it is I'm trying to say is that really what the story of all living phenomena has been is that what has been moving here. And human beings look at reality, we experience a cause and effect relationship, we think that it has to have a cause, we wonder about the original cause of reality, and we come to a sort of metaphysical impossibility where we're like, okay, if this world has been caused, that means if something contingent excuse me, to continue. So when we look at reality, we're like, how's something here? We tell ourselves, okay, because there was something else before, what's here now? And so we go and we follow this back to the original, and it's a sort of infinite regress. And conceptually, due to the nature of mind and body being a simultaneous, moments awakening, how would I say it? It's like existence is experiencing itself. It's like existence is experiencing, or I should say, existence is experiencing experience existing. Advancement means movement. In order for something to go forth, there has to be the space and the potential for it to go forth. Human beings may not know the origin of their reality. We don't know the far, you know, back, and we don't know the far future. We look in front of our eyes and we don't see the edge of the cosmos, and we close our eyes and we don't see the edge of our inner realms. You know, so we can't see the edge of the world in front of our eyes, and behind our eyes there's no self to see it. It's more just like attention hovering. In my life personally, advancement had the presence of a spirit. If somebody says, Mr. Within, how are you so casually talking about a spirit? And I would say it's because I notice that there are forces with intent and forces without intent. So let's say a ball is rolling from a table. Okay, a ball is rolling from a table, imagine. And the ball falls down, and people are like, yo, man, that's gravity, right? And imagine, from another angle, somebody's late. They're running, trying to run out the door. And right before they run out the door, this piece of paper falls from the corner of this table, and it was something important they had forgotten, they had written, you know? So what I'm saying is, like, you see, the point of the mind is acting like the intelligence coordinator. The mind is defining the moment before existing in it. And if the mind does not consciously define the world, what the world means to it, the world defines it for it. Now, the challenge in, let's say, wisdom or anti-wisdom, like antimatter, let's say in wisdom traditions and anti-wisdom traditions, it's pretty much there's a potential to be, and there's a potential to be in the human framework, and there's a potential to be in the human framework in a way that has never been before. Really, everything is advancing. The privilege of human life is that we can watch it. You know? Like people pay for Netflix and then they could watch Netflix, whenever they want. Similarly, it's like to be born in a world. It's kind of like you've opted in an invisible outliner I don't know how to say it. It's like the free will is like a sculptor when it comes to existence, like our experience is sculpting our existence, our conscious experience. But I don't know, it's like I have this feeling so many human beings are looking for truth. They're looking for advancement. Everybody pretty much wants to update, but to what degree? You know? It's like if everybody was immortal, how much would we care about anything? You know? Everything is moving. The human mind gives us the privilege to accompany the movement, to notice it's moving. Right? And out of all the species on this planet, just take this in. Just take this in. We are the only creature on this planet that has figured out it's on a planet. Bam. We have done the most alien thing as human beings. Nature wanted to have an out-of-body experience, the planet Gaia, the Gaian mind, the planet wanted to have an out-of-body experience, so astronauts had destinies, had destined metals. Okay, let me move faster through this. We look at reality, we look at the moment. There's many ways to look at the moment. I've displayed some ways so far of how to look at the moment. We start off with a classification, a dualistic classification of the moment, and then we branch out the dualism towards infinite possibilities, pretty much. Something about the advancement of advancement, it's pretty much this principle that you could say the most advanced martial artists had, right? Or the most advanced fighters. And it was this idea that when a person, think of it instead of advancement, I use the archetype of power. So it's like, imagine someone who doesn't have power, someone who doesn't have power, and they know they don't have power, has to prove their power. Okay? But somebody who truly has power, they don't look for power. It's like, why aren't human beings trying to be human beings? Why are so many human beings trying to get enlightened? Why aren't human beings trying to be human beings? Right? Because what we are, we don't establish a dualistic separate relationship with. That means because we are human beings, we're not trying to be human beings. If we were truly advanced beings, we would not be trying to be advanced beings. It's another way of saying the most advanced beings in this world, upon realizing the world's intelligence is present before theirs, become the world before the world can be a world. Okay? And so this is pointing towards that sort of metaphysical state where the yogi, usually it happens through the intent of the beyond, but the intentions from the beyond. But what tends to happen is that when a human being reaches Brahma Loka, the seventh heaven in mystical metaphysical traditions. What tends to happen is that the human being realizes reality is not a game. And imagine God was playing a computer game and God had forgotten that it's playing the game. What the essence, like deep down, like this might be a very strange statement to say, but like it's like the essence of all of our souls is being how the whole world has an instantaneously holistic value. I don't know how to say it. It's like to be an individual creature in the cosmos is the privilege of such a small entity that it feels it cannot be part of the big. You know, something remarkable will happen in the future, and we're going to see children who will contact a different nature on this earth. So there's a type of nature, you go touch a tree and you're like, yo man, look at this, you know, gift of nature. You touch the tree. But there's another type of nature which is not a static landscape of artist can paint a sunset for you. It's about how the moment occurs and with what life sensitivity and intention to abide by one's knowing. How do I finish the sentence? I'm saying pretty much the person starts off trying to solve an ideological puzzle when it comes to the truth of nature. They will soon realize that whatever they find, they are watching. And the hidden treasure of mysticism is that so many people in life try to understand the observed, not realizing that 100-year lifespan of the human being is not an opportunity to just engage externally, but to notice how the internal is externalizing. It's another way of saying to have a mind is the privilege of experiencing a moving world. It's a gift. It's the greatest clue that there is something transcendental going on here in this world of ours is us. It is shape. I don't know if anybody has had, moments like this, but I've had moments where I've known I'm a philosopher, and you know how I knew? Because I was like, am I existing right now? Like, what is this? How has the moment lived as itself and as me simultaneously? Everything is advancement because everything, by going through an experience, is being pushed. It's moving. It's like, a person wondering, all these yogis trying to escape karma because they were moving. It's so strange. It's so strange that some nights I feel like, what is existence waiting for? How many people will there be that will, be born in the future, and they will see blind spots that we never knew existed? That's one of the most beautiful things about the future, When it comes to advancement, I guess I'll open up the idea to the relationships a person has with their reality suggests what they can advance in. So let's say a person has a relationship which is their self, then they have a relationship with others, and then they have a relationship with the world. So think of it this way: there is three versions of reality, that if these versions of reality are synchronized, in some sense leads to let's say karmic, non-karmic clarity. Okay, so one way the person has to be like, okay, forget everybody else, forget the world. What am I? What is this self that is here? Who am I? Right? So this is the relationship of self to self. People don't usually acknowledge this for, self development for most people are kind of learning for silently from their mistakes. There's a way we can think of it this way: every human being is some sort of energy, some sort of directable, navigatable power. Now, one mode, just like we have airplane mode for our phones, right? So, or, we can turn off the Wi Fi or whatever. Similarly, there's a way, every human being that is alive right now listening, you can pretty much just experience yourself with yourself. And usually in stillness, this can happen as if the person's like, everything is being how I am being. This is a sort of self to self experience of the whole moment of the world. Then there's the self with others. The experience of self with others. I feel most of this is in being unconsciously driven. That means the logos is handling it indirectly through people. But what it is that the person considers, imagine we add self to self, and then we have self to world. So the person's just like, forget who I am, forget what others are, it's just my pure attention within the pure presence of a world. And before, it was my pure attention within the pure presence of myself. You see, it's three powers. It's like we're like this being that is using some of its power to be something to itself. It using some of its power to prepare for external intelligent variables in the environment. And another part of its power is how it solves its context. It's pretty much the human body's energy is going to, what is the context pretty much, where am I? Where am I? What am I? And why am I? These three questions. There's this energy. The energy wonders about, what is the world? Our relationship with the world is location. So consciousness is locating itself instantaneously as the world. It's sometimes very incredible when you try to think about, the purpose of let's say, intelligence, not to specifically just be the human being, but kind of like what is the world doing with the human being? Or it's another way of saying, if the planet created the human being, designed the human, it's as if, why did it design it? Right? There's something about the moment we realize what we are and what we have, it comes to what are we going to do with what we have. Pretty much all human beings, the purpose of our lives is we're like some sort of energy, and we got to do something with this energy before we exit. Everything is advancement could also be an implication that when we wonder what's the point of knowledge, we are left with knowledge's endless expansion in the unknown. Pretty much what is going on is that the world is being imagined. Imagine there is no such thing as the conscious individual, and there's no such thing as the collective unconscious. Okay, the conscious individual, and the collective unconscious. These are Jungian terms. Now, what I mean by this is that before there was any consciousness, before there was any attention to the room was being the room. Now, when individual consciousness arrives in the scene, that's when the relationship of the unconscious, it's another way of saying we created the big, the archetype of the big, the moment we created the archetype of the small. The moment we created the archetype of a fall, there came the archetype to rise. So it's another way of saying, what I'm trying to say here is, it's like I'm saying, we needed a mind, we needed a mind to turn the unknown into a self and a world. So what is going on is right now, like from an existential perspective, I'm just being like the periodic table. Like right now, the periodic table is talking to you, and the periodic table is subscribing, to my epic YouTube channel, But I don't know. I'm just trying to say that in this moment, there is like an existential, meaningless atomic being. Like existentially speaking, existence doesn't exist. This definitely has to be a talk for the future. Existentially speaking, existence doesn't exist. Anyways, where I'm trying to take this is attention is present in the moment. What can we existentially do? What can we experientially do? What are the dimensions of intelligence accessible? What do we do when we have all of knowledge? We come to the unknown. What does a being do that has the most advanced ability and power? The moment it realizes it's being it, it doesn't have a relationship in time with its ability. Some people require like sequential authorization for their minds to activate a skill, and there's some people who just know the moment and they can instantly be the moment. You see, some people think, for example, this is my, theological, poetic view on this, but this archetype of Moses, for example, opening up the Red Sea, for me, it wasn't like, Moses knocked with his, staff on the ground and it's like, the shore open. To me, it was the synchronicity of all synchronicities. It was like a moment where the being didn't have to be an individual for something to happen in the moment. The person, whether humanized, dehumanized, whatever sort of presence and position of attention they have, people on this planet of ours have not even come to become accustomed to they are simultaneously, their soul is not inside a body, but what the mind is poetically how their soul is in space. Some people say I had an out of body experience. When you have an out of mind experience, you experience yourself as this singular moment that is noticing your body. You're noticing physical and non-physical movement simultaneously, and that awareness cannot be defined by either side. It's like, think of it this way: there's visible truths. How do I say it? Imagine one side of the coin is individual, the other side is collective, and neither side is each side, but simultaneously they are. Human perception is the ability for limited human perception is what's giving us a game to play here. If people say, Mr. Within, what's the point of energy advancing in a vacuum? I would say it's unknown and performance oriented. So far, part of me feels like a bit mysterianistic about it, where I feel there's something about life is intentionally designed not to be fully understood. It's as if our existential position is giving humanity like a clue, not a clue, but some sort of vibe where it's as if you're so small and the cosmos is so big that even the greatest minds on the planet are still, nothing compared to the vastness of everything, So it's kind of like to me, it doesn't seem that we're designed in this world to get knowledge, or I shouldn't say to get knowledge, but it's not about just understanding how the world happens. I feel the reason we're individually manifest is because there is something that needs to be done on a performance level, right? Some people, see reality as like a school. Like there's a lot of people, with a sort of traditional spiritualistic perspective where they're like, yeah, man, this world is a school, some souls are in kindergarten and they're evil and cruel, and some souls are like, they're in university, they're not even here. And we're all here learning from our experiences, leveling up. It's like, that's all great until you wonder, is it infinite though? Are we in an infinite looping school? It's, imagine being in a school that never finishes, right? And of course, spiritual people, when they say, we use the metaphor of a school, it's the evolution of the soul, not the evolution of the object. Right, the whole idea of the soul is that it's something that's beyond the object and subject, right? And so anytime we notice a moment where something more than an object and subject has moved, it's as if divinity is the room. So where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So some people look at reality and they see it as a school, but for the approach I have to it more that it's kind of like a performance. And imagine there's a long line of unborn performers. Like right now, I'm here giving this talk like I'm an early bird, for the history of our species, talking about an advanced civilization. But like, I just feel there are going to be so many advanced human beings born on this planet that we in 2022, like people like maybe 1,000 years from now, or let's say, a couple 100 years from now, are going to look back at 2022 and they're going to laugh at everything we suffered from. The future generations are going to laugh at 2022. Why? Not because we were fools and made mistakes, is because what we had access to and we didn't notice. Sometimes when I don't want to give these talks, my mind's justifying, like, okay, you talk too much, relax today. Yeah. But there's moments where I just feel like, oh my God, so many human beings are going to walk on this planet that we are walking on now. It's like, imagine being somewhere where for 4.5 billion years, stuff's been, adjusting its face. It's such a cool privilege to be alive because we also get this privilege to give the life meaning. When you are younger, or whoever you are, if you start off in life in a weak archetype, you're going to usually wait for strength as a outer permission, right? But when a person realizes their mortality, it's a sort of kind of, you know, just like we have insta coffee, it's like a person noticing their mortality is like instant maturity. The person's like, oh my God, I was suffering because of my emotions and ideas, but I'm a temporary biological system and I'm gonna exit at some point. Right? That's what we all act like everything is normal until that moment where we realize the world never was. It's a changing system, you know? And if it was changing faster than it is now, it would be impossible to believe it. Belief is the privilege of a faster dimension being able to observe another dimension slower. That's where personality arises. I'm telling you, and there's certain states of being in this world of ours where beings don't need a personality. Personality, think of it as a shadow of eternity. So imagine we're like these. I mean, I shouldn't say we're like these. It's not like a comic book, but like, but it's like we think the world is this physical place, even though it's all hovering in the middle of this black abyss, like black empty space, right? Pitch black. Like, we're in this like empty hollow hallway or empty room where we can't see the walls of the room, right? And everything's just hovering midair. You know, we're like the planet is hovering, but on the surface of the planet, everything, just like that Lonely Island video, I threw that shit on the ground. Really, what it is interaction with force. When I was younger, I had this feeling, can life really fail? You know, and what is like the supreme failure? You know, and then I realized it's literally art. Like every person animating anything moving is art, but it's like the empty canvas is stillness and silence. Like it's, think of it this way: knowledge is the movement of the world relayed inaccurately. That's educational knowledge, you know. But the accurate experience of life, it's like we all have access to the great, you know, truth and problem of reality. You know, what has occurred is that cultural programs have limited the curiosity for an entity to want to know how limitless it can be. And what can I say about advancement? You know, sometimes if I treat advancement like a circle, like a round circle, the argument would go something in the lines of, if karma was a circle, was a wheel, it would be as if like the most advanced moment of being is this exact moment of being. This would be a sort of circular event to truth, eventhood to truth. You see, that's the whole thing. It's the change of location. It's like consciousness is the spotlight, it's like space. Really, what the mind is space. Like the body is noticing itself in a space, which by its movement in it, it can be. And there's advancement on many levels. In the outer realms, there's a sort of external advancement. Those are all like, you know, you know, it's like I can't see how history will be written, but I could see all the empty notebooks waiting. You know, people think that mysticism is a sort of ultimate confrontation of fear. You know, there's this Sufi mystic poet by the name of Rumi. He says your task is not to seek love, but to get rid of all the barriers you have made against it. And it could be that our task as human beings is not to find truth, but in some sense get rid of all the barriers that have obstructed truth being in the room before we were. You see, that's the nature of reality. The nature of reality is that space is imbued with manifest potential. It's very difficult to say, you know, is our body existing in a world, or is our mind being all shapes that are manifest? In dehumanized states of mind, if somebody says, all right, Mr. Within, you know, you talk about the inner realms, you talk about different states of mind. Have you experienced states of mind where you are not human? And I would say that I have experienced myself as a geometrical entity. My mind has playfully perceived, like, I mean, it's not like the Jungian anima, animus, or a person looking at an android and wondering like what the android version of themselves would be. The mind, you know, recreates itself in every moment to assure itself that it's there. But when it comes to dehumanized states, there has been moments where my personal metaphysics is that I have moved as a geometrical entity in my inner realms. So right now I'm just sitting on my couch, you know, but in my inner realms, I could like geometrically project my attention, like, you know, close to the edge of the ceiling of my house and just be a geometrical shape. It's all about attention. The nature, you see, the body is a character in a story, then there's survival and strategy. But when it comes to the nature of the mind is not a character in a story. The mind is a screen for an unknown viewer which is the mystery behind how once the string of the soul is pulled, it reveals the fabric of a coherent truth network. So, what it is man is inside a bubble. And when this bubble pops, we're going to realize in every moment of our individual loneliness, we have simultaneously been the collective space of it. We are those beings, or let me say it this way: the soul is a being in a timeless reality. The body is a being in time. The mind is the bridge. You know, it's like the person having at first a singular character in a story version of themselves, then realizing, no, 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 no. Just like the brain has different parts, and different parts of the brain are, together working, and, the frontal lobe is, let's say, illuminating. Like, different parts of the brain even took different millions of years to develop, right? So we are existence in the making. Like, I'm right now being a live stream of an existential entity, you know? Sometimes it's like, from a materialistic perspective, is the purpose of human life to give, you know, non-fiction, fictitious personality? People speak about materialism, not realizing how dangerous of an ideology it is. You know, anything that is only one-sided ends up becoming dangerous usually. You know, when I say advancement, the advancement applies to the dualistic, meaning that whether there's a good being or bad being, advancement is its own position, it's its own view. Any being anywhere in the realm can be advanced. Usually, if they can be aware of it, they are. But every being in anywhere, interdimensional or otherwise, it's the transition. It's like the energy that is being the presence of the personality, the psyche in the moment, shifts from watching the inner story it's like when the person realizes what is looking through their eyes, that the seer of the scene is unseen, as the Upanishads say. The one that is looking, the one that is looking, the one that is seeing that they are seeing is unseen. So it would be another way of saying, it's as if there's something not from this world, in this world, capable to move in this world, but never in this world. It to me, there's this strange feeling. Like, this is a very strange thing to say, but like, if sometimes I feel this world I'm giving this talk in, is not the original Earth. It's not the original reality, because the original reality is too instantaneously advanced to be conditional. You see, is the world happening because shape wants to change, or because forces want to be noticed? Like, what is the point of the advancement of a world? To me, it feels like a sort of, I guess, I don't know, recycling process where we have, think of it the God archetype, we have the world. Think of it this way: we have God. God creates man, and man is in the world. Now man tries to become a god. God tries to become the world. I don't know how to say it. I'm trying to say that in the consideration that consciousness could be evolving in a dehumanized way in another dimension simultaneously as this dimension is happening. The subjective evolution, what I'm trying to say is, like, from one side of the coin, the purpose of human life is the human life. From the other side of the coin, we are the necessity of nature. Something in this world, some force, which most likely is the same force that is moving us, requires us. Sometimes the meaning of existence is presence. You know, pretty much what I'm trying to say is, beyond archetypes, one becomes space. That means if there, let's say if I'm some mystical person trying to talk about like dimensions beyond here, what I'm pointing to is, I'm saying beyond, let's say, this earth plane, this plane of existence, the attention doesn't pilot with trying to establish certainty as an individual first. So right now, like, okay, let's say we say a human being is a physical being. Why? Because their initial reception of reality is physical, right? But now let's say somebody is a mental being. Why? Because their relationship, what is happening to them in the moment, is a mental event. It's the mind happening. But I'm trying to say, at the end of every day, we are rooted in this awareness that saw the day. And we have to wonder about not only what life is, but what does what we see mean. To be a human being is such an advanced thing, and our species thinks it's advanced. We think 2022 we're having progress, you know? Beyond this dimension, it's states of being. Right now we're being a human being. The human part is way more real than the space. For most beings, what tends to happen is that they realize space cannot die, and this sort of system that has feared its own parts. How do I say it? It's like a machine that is afraid of breaking realizes it was never a machine. And really, what's going on is that everything in this world is unknown. We, for a little bit of time, as just people who are born, have the privilege to convert the unknown into an efficient story for the species to come, for everybody. That means the greatest human beings on our planet are indirectly living for everybody. Who knew? Who knew that the most advanced way of being an individual human being is to realize you are the presence of the potential of your whole species. Just whoever you are right now listening, I want you to just close your eyes for a moment and just wonder about, just like we look at somebody, let's say somebody athletic, and we're like, yo, this kid has the potential to make it to the major leagues. I want whoever you are listening to just look at your species as if, imagine your attention, imagine in the future there's going to be jetpacks, and we all have jetpacks, and we flew a couple 100 meters into the air, and with next level goggles or whatever, or with nice Ray-Ban sunglasses, we all stared at human civilization. You see, this is what I realized has been absent. And you know what's incredible? The samurai the samurai kept the idea of honor. Many traditions, of course, not just the samurai, But what I'm trying to point to is that our ancestors behaved as if their subjective landscapes overlaid upon the physical, the objective landscapes of the moment. The reverence our ancestors had with how their own mind was happening was their direct experience of divinity. And what I'm trying to say is, pretty much as a being, and especially if the idea of reincarnation is pointing like beings are looping here, it's like a failed level of a video game and endlessly beings are looping, Even the video game designers are like, okay, we got to change something about this game, It's like a level that's looping, and something specific needs to be done to get out of this level. But once you get out of the level, reality is not the same game. And what I'm trying to say is that any being on this earth who has an experience of, call it an experience of pure mind, pure thought, pure attention, but you're going to notice at some point that the simplest unit or the simplest quality of your being is just your attention being. Like when you realize you are not just a creature, you're not just a creature of shape, but you're also a creature of awareness to shape. So that's the thing. And our species, it hasn't learned it now. I give it a couple 100 years, the species is going to realize why I've been saying inner realms all this whole time. This inability of us as beings to discriminate between what the moment brings into our attention and what our attention puts in the moment. Any being who can discriminate between these, it's pretty much, think of it, back in the day, there was this kid in a battlefield, his father and uncles had died in war, and this kid was alone, and imagine back in the day in medieval times, and this kid one day, picked up the sword that was too heavy for him to even carry, and this little kid goes into the forest and tries every day, I shouldn't say little kid, but like this kid constantly tries to hit every tree as if it's an opponent, right? And this kid masters the craft of swordsmanship. Why? Because he repeated the intensity of the experience until he could pilot it. That's the nature of really the human ability. We acquaint ourselves through repetitive exposure, and then we strategize through an additional oversight. The greatest approach, at least, I feel the future is gonna, walk where I'm pointing to, but there is another type of romance. There's a romance where it's not spoken about because the opportunity for this romance has not been present. But what it is that the more intelligent creatures become, the more capable they are to notice differences. These differences cause hostilities until, through certain, let's say, suffering and collisions, beings realize that the privilege of manifestation at some point there is no judgment on what is allowed to be a shape. After some point the attention's like, okay, something is moving. As it moves, moment is accessed as information. The information each has an individual universe of its own meaning, but it has a collective composite meaning. And so if one was to try to reach the greatest advancement, it's another way of saying the most advanced life of an individual life is the collective life. The most advanced life of the collective is to be free from the governance of that individualism, right? It's like the birds, that treat their young. They feed the bird, and then the bird goes out of the nest and learns to fly. And sometimes I feel this universal mind is pushing ideas by itself until its ideas can walk for themselves, right? So right now I'm somebody, imagine I'm speaking and I'm moving these thoughts. But imagine without me speaking, these thoughts were already moving in the moment, It's just the presence of our perception. Everything is advancing, everything is going forth. To be a happy person is to notice you're being a traveler and realizing your biological eyes are front row seats to a macrocosmic event where, we get to experience it from, the side, from a side view. There is a greatness that is dependent on our past greatness. That means if we don't try to be great, the future is going to be like, our ancestors didn't care, And so it all goes forth. The moment goes forth. And there will come a time where there could be a chance that this talk, these Mr. Within talks may be more immortal than me, more eternal than me. Not eternal, but immortal. Life is incredible. As it's being a performance between the known and the unknown, it is simultaneously being a revelation of our own ability. That means whatever somebody goes through, something is happening. That's the genius of nature. In every movement, infinite potentials have a choice to become finite. It's a choice. To be a temporary creature, is subjectively a choice. But when a person notices, wait a minute, I have been something, or something in this moment of life of mine has been watching my body change, has been watching the thoughts come and go, and has watched the world change. It's as if, imagine your whole life living in a story and suddenly realizing the world is unknown. You are unknown and others are unknown. It's like nobody knows how we all know how we all don't know. Do you know? It's another way of saying 8 billion conscious moments in the space-time continuum of trying to record all of it. The brain is acting as if it's the chemical agent it's literally like a reaction between two different dimensions. It's kind of like we're here thinking we're just these physical creatures, but we are like, the body is like an antenna, and the mind, certain amounts of it, certain ways the inner realm moves, it's being received, right? It's kind of like information to us. It's like we have processed food. Our biological eyes are seeing processed reality. Okay, it's processed reality. Our memories and our opinions and beliefs are like all the unnecessary ingredients, or stuff put into this processed reality. If it was food, it would be unnecessary elements in it, right? Substances. So similarly, our experience of reality is the experience of processed reality. It's the experience of ethnocentric processed reality, which is another way of saying every person is raised in the presence of their own mind. Everybody. You can get help from outside. You could have, lots of friends, or you could be, just a solo pilot, whoever you are, right? But what I'm trying to say is that when you realize the permission giver to the permission seeker are the presence of the same moment, advancement, enlightenment, greatness, these no longer become archetypes to look for. They become the second nature level of reality, or first nature of reality. You see, it's like it's like somebody trying to be great, and then somebody doing something that what they're doing is great. It's kind of like, what's his name? Shakespeare says some people are born great, some people achieve greatness, some people have greatness thrust upon them. For me, the human species, everybody was born great, right? It's like when a person looks at like, yo, consciousness appeared in a buffalo. It's like, so what incredible privilege, to be in the human eyes, to be a human being in the void is like having VIP tickets. It's like having VIP seats in the manifestation of intelligent creatures in the realm. I have decided, I've talked about in these talks before, I've talked about this, that I have this intent to create, this great network, for all philosophers on the planet, called School of Athens 2.0. What man needs is not to get possessed by answers, but to become liberated by questions. The greatness of the human species lies in this sentence of what other way can the species look at the moment. This is the resolve of this sentence is the greatness, the advanced humanity seeks. Because what it is, it's like you can't build an advanced civilization unless it was built advanced from the beginning. The advancement of something that hasn't even started only is limited to its potential, right? Whoever you are, the potential greatness of your future is beyond whatever the past passed through. We get one lifetime to experience our own life, and one lifetime to see if the species can honor itself, to reestablish, the nation of humanity, the nation of the species. We are a species. We are creatures that look the same. That's unique placement. We are creatures that are playful. We're creatures that have humor. We're creatures that have capability for a spectrum of intense and gentle activity. And it's as if every human being is like a different angle to the same world. Really, what the evolution of human intelligence appears to be is the grace of realizing the world was beyond the human framework. And that's okay. It's okay to notice the unknown, regardless of the boldness of our knowledge. You see that this is really the power that, this is like the proper aim of mysticism, to allow the individual or to allow that free will in the moment to realize that regardless of whatever individual activity happens, regardless of whatever cosmic activity happens, the inseparability of the individual and the cosmic is the realization that truth cannot exist as a concept because it disconnects something. It disconnects this space from itself. It's another way of saying truth is being. I mean, truth is being. Like, that's pretty. Truth is like space, and what moves in truth is like the simulation. So we are the movements of the world's mind, or of truth's mind. It's like me writing these sentences is like if the whole cosmos was a mind. This is what it chose to do. Oh, man. Anyways, thanks for listening. Whoever's listened so far. The incredible thing about life is that once we make decisions, we free our inner realms. Once we make important decisions on the value or the view of our own life, we release our mind from suffering, And it's kind of like how the intent of all global therapy for trying to resolve mental illness on the planet is for the individual to be confident enough to realize that it is the pilot of its world inside other worlds. The nature of the human mind, the nature of human decency was not the ability to just, not just the ability that every person is carrying a world only they can see behind their eyes, but it's the ability of the acknowledgement of multiple worlds at the same time. This is the beauty of how suddenly from the trunk of a potential being arose the branches of knowledge. People like, if they made an anime about the educational system, like, it would be the coolest anime ever. But not when I say about the educational system, I don't mean like high school, like anime shows where millions of them exist. I'm saying in the sense of the concept of knowledge was actually the access to the most ancient sort of power, like a creature that wants physical power. Like, imagine two animals, two beasts fighting. Like, that's a limited intelligence way of wanting, limited way of wanting power. The person just wants brute force. The person just wants the experience of chaotic freedom as order breaks. But when order breaks, that chaos consumes, which is another way of saying the world's meaning, politeness, laws are a privilege and luxury of it's an evolutionary privilege. Whoever you are, or I should just say it this way, I wondered about what is the most advanced state of being. And the answer came, that the view I have of it is that the most advanced state of being is a state of being that is advanced in all dimensions of its being. It's like saying what's the most advanced, it's like saying what's the most advanced gear in a machine, and the answer being like the most advanced system. You see, we have the privilege out of all the species on this planet to recreate and interact with the space-time continuum through a subjective, storified way where we are lost as selves in the world, but we are found as worlds in the self. Seldom this is said, but what is within seems to be everywhere at once. What greater value could there be? Anything the individual creates, projects, it's all separate projection in the moment. It's as if we're human beings, and the human part is the simulation, the being part is the truth. But when we realize truth created the simulation, faith in the simulation is the trust of truth. I think this was the main intent of religious traditions, where they were like, have faith in the inconceivable cause to all conceivable effects. Greatness is not a story. It's not like a trophy received like a story, a story received like a trophy. It's more like what was the most important actions that were the best actions, the most efficient actions that could be done in that moment of time. Right now, I don't know why my consciousness is just, why I'm, part of me feels like I don't know, I have this hidden nostalgia of, it's like I was saying, the romance with the future of the species. It's like there's been times where I felt like this sort of timeless intelligence is this specific archetype is appearing everywhere in the cosmos where civilizations are reaching their advancement threshold. There's something that's happening that's not just particular to us. The more we become responsible for the whole moment, the more we realize everything is moving itself in a way where nothing can be seen. Behind our eyes, and objects breaking is not the end. An object's dismissal is not the end. What is looking at the moment could very well be so ancient, we might call it eternal. That which is looking through your eyes is the spirit of the life of the world. A soul no longer, shackled to, you know, one chapter of its parallel lives. In order for human beings to be the most advanced individuals, they have to be in the most advanced world. In order for there to be the most advanced world, there has to be the most advanced individuals. Whatever happens in the future of humanity, if there's enough, let's say, compassionate, benevolent people, if enough benevolent geniuses on the planet advance individual consciousness and collective consciousness, you see, the whole species has to reset the human story to one where the species deserved to see how advanced it was before the curtains of extinction were pulled. The greatness of humanity is the greater life of every human being. The destiny of all that was the effort of every human being that had been a human shape, that had lived in this archetype. Or to be a human being is to enter these ancient halls, this ancient geometrical hall of, you imagine your skeleton and your body's shape being like this hall of fame of as if your body is the privilege to identify with the geometrical tradition of continuity of patterns and modes of information processing. There is something so incredible going on here that the species has to wonder about creating new approaches to all the things that are happening, the same, that are looping. It's as if, how do we get a species to be fascinated by its own most advanced state? And I feel that the moment we find the collective mirror, dear viewers, everything is trying to advance until advancement is in the driver's seat. It's another way of saying the person thought man was in a world that God created, The smile of eternity is content with all that the moment could be. The most advanced beings in this, just fathomable or possible to even consider, are beings that are so advanced that they can be any moment of the whole moment that they are being. The story of mankind is how infinity is alive temporarily. And in what way will 8 billion advanced minds, like advanced lions, imagine 8 billion giant lions just roared in the same direction, or roared at the sky. the most advanced are the advancement of the whole world. Thank you for listening. Rise, mankind, rise.